Hey, how you doing? Daniel Ruiz Tyson, The Writer's Life. It's just gone 10 in the morning. Just been for a run. It's a wet morning in London. It's kind of drying off now, but seeing as I run on grass, it was good to pretty much have the area that I run on, the area of grass that I run on was pretty much empty. There were no, sunbathers, there were no couples on the grass that I had to run past. As my friend Mitch once texted me rather memorably, what is it about you white people that you just sit on the grass without a blanket? I couldn't argue there. It's something that I don't understand myself. But so it was good to have. Have my little area to myself, was able to push myself a bit harder this morning. I can see the fitness slowly improving. I'm a long way off from where I'd like to be, but the important thing is, I'm doing it. Every time I see some people running past, because this running thing, it's not something I've done for years and it's something I've never enjoyed. I try to look at the way other people are running. Are my strides too long? Am I going too fast? Am I moving my arms too much? I've eliminated the left nipple chafing that was dogging me a couple of weeks ago by not leading so much with my left arm. So that's good. Saw a guy as I just finished. He was running with his arms pretty much down by his side. I thought, should I try that? And then I thought, no, I think I would struggle with that. I think I need momentum in my arms. So I'm going to upload this, then I'm going to have a shower, then I'm going to head to the cafe. Not been going much the last couple of weeks, on a budget. What writer isn't? Going to be trying to push myself with a rewrite. And those two guys that I mentioned are back in the cafe last week, the very overweight guy and his sidekick. They're both in their 70s, obviously retired. They go to another cafe every day. Their cafe closes annually every summer, so then they come into my cafe, and I've forgotten the Muppet Show reference. I had to actually go online to look for the. Sorry, I got sweat in my eyes here. To look for the names of those two old blokes from the Muppet Show, and their name escapes me. Is it Statler and Waldorf, something like that? Anyway, which reminded me, and I don't think I trotted out this anecdote last week. I'm hoping I didn't. When they were last in the cafe a couple of summers ago, I was working on the same script I'm going to be rewriting today because I'm going to be tweaking it. And it reminds me of a Tears for Fears story. Ian Stanley, their old co-producer, who was also a member of the band in the early days when they peaked in '85. They were arguably the biggest band in the world until most of the band walked out on them, I think, on the morning of Live Aid because their contracts had expired. And Tears for Fears might be hard to believe, but they really were the biggest band in the world in '85. And Ian Stanley, I think, started working with them on the Brilliant Seeds of Love album, which, one of my favourite ever albums. And then he left, and then he told this story where he returned a year later, and Tears for Fears, Orzabal and Kurt Smith were still working on the same track. So it kind of reminds me a bit about, a bit of that. These two guys are back, and here I am now working on the same script again. The thing I really liked about the Seeds of Love album as well, I mean, it's probably my favourite album, my favourite band in New Order. I think New Order 81 to 93, maybe not so much the Republic album, but it was still a good album, maybe just below their normal standards. But their work throughout the 80s, I think, is on a par with the work of the Beatles. I'm not a Beatles fan, but I have no problem recognising and accepting their greatness because they were only around for a short time. They were very young. I don't think that's got so much to do with it. But the way they changed in such a short space of time, the fact that they had to go back into the studio, that they could no longer play live, I thought that was really, really impressive. Just switching arms now. I really got to get a selfie stick. But back to Tears for Fears. What I liked about the Seeds of Love album is, by then, they disappeared for 4 years. They'd gone from being the biggest band in the world. They came back with this completely different sound. The rest of the country was gearing up for Manchester. And then Tears for Fears were coming back with this pseudo-jazz. Kurt Smith had lost the pigtails. Orzabal had grown his hair out and permed it. They looked really different. And it gave me this long-standing fascination with just disappearing for a long time and coming back looking different. You know, like when you see a TV show returns for a new series and they've got new opening credits and the actors have grown their hair or shortened their hair or grown a beard. It's that kind of thing. I do like that. I like returning looking differently. And the closest I ever came to that was back in the dark days of the recession. My Channel 4 deal was in the balance. I had to go back to the man, took on a temp job. Was let go by the temp job. They shed a lot of jobs. And this is during the time I was in the hotel. And things were tough. The hotel was so expensive. I hadn't cut my hair. And then I got called back in by the job. I had no option but to go back a couple of months later. And I kind of went back with my hair. It did look different, but it just looked rubbish because I'd just grown it out. There was no style to it. So that's the closest I ever came to the different hair return. And that all goes back to the Tears for Fears Seeds of Love album, which is, came out 30 years ago now. August 89, they came back looking differently, sounding differently. Great album. Anyway, enjoy your day. Maybe I'll catch up with you later. Maybe I won't. I probably will. I accept I will. Take care.